when stability became the most dangerous choice. For years, it felt like the safest move. Hold steady, protect what worked, avoid unnecessary disruption. In a world obsessed with speed and novelty, choosing stability looked wise, almost responsible. And for a long time, it was until the moment it quietly became the most dangerous decision the company could make. To understand why this story matters now, we have to return to a period when uncertainty dominated the market. Competitors rose and fell quickly. Technologies shifted without warning. Customers experimented freely, then retreated just as fast. Amid that volatility, this company became a refuge, predictable, reliable, unchanging. Stability wasn't just a strategy, it was a promise. Our story begins inside leadership meetings where caution was praised. Decisions favored preservation over experimentation. Roadmaps emphasized incremental improvements rather than bold moves. Every proposal was filtered through a single question: will this protect what we already have? If the answer was unclear, the idea stalled. At first, the approach paid off. Customers stayed loyal. Revenues remained consistent. While others stumbled chasing trends, this company endured. Analysts applauded the discipline. Internally, stability became a badge of honor, a sign of maturity in a chaotic industry. But stability has a hidden cost. Over time, the world outside the company continued to evolve. Customer expectations shifted subtly. New use cases emerged. Competitors tested ideas the company dismissed as unnecessary risk. None of it triggered alarms, because nothing was breaking. The system still worked. That was the problem. A product strategist noticed the early signs. Feedback wasn't negative, but it was changing. Customers spoke less about excitement and more about dependability. They described the product as solid, fine, good enough. The words sounded reassuring, but something about them felt final. Satisfaction had replaced enthusiasm. The strategist raised a quiet concern. Stability might be masking stagnation. The response was calm. There was no crisis, no churn spike, no urgency. Stability, leadership believed, was exactly what customers wanted, especially now. What no one realized yet was that stability hadn't stopped change. It had only slowed the company's response to it. And once that delay became visible, the cost would be far greater than any risk the company had avoided. As the company doubled down on stability, the signals grew more subtle and more telling. Customers stopped requesting new capabilities, not because they no longer needed them, but because they no longer expected the company to provide them. Conversations shifted from possibility to maintenance, from future plans to current reliability. The product had become dependable but predictable. Internally, teams adapted to the mindset. Innovation proposals grew conservative. Experiments were scoped narrowly to avoid disruption. Risk reviews expanded. Approval cycles lengthened. The organization learned how to protect itself from uncertainty, and doing so, slowly distanced itself from opportunity. The strategists continued tracking feedback, this time looking beyond satisfaction scores. They noticed a pattern in customer language. Words like essential and strategic faded. In their place appeared phrases like works for now and does the job. The product wasn't failing. It was fading into the background of customers' priorities. Leadership remained confident. Stability was still delivering results. Contracts renewed. Margins held. From a distance, the strategy looked vindicated. But the strategists saw something else. When customers stop imagining a future with you, they don't leave immediately. They wait. They watch. And when an alternative appears, the decision becomes effortless. That alternative was forming quietly. Competitors weren't attacking the company's core. They were offering optional layers, new workflows, small enhancements that addressed emerging needs without demanding full commitment. Customers began experimenting at the edges, piloting new tools alongside the stable system they trusted. No announcements, no threats, just curiosity. Inside the company, these experiments were barely noticed. They didn't impact renewals. They didn't reduce usage significantly, but they changed habits. And habits, once changed, are hard to reclaim. The strategist escalated concern again, warning that stability had become a shield against uncomfortable truths. The response was sympathetic but firm. The company couldn't afford unnecessary risk. The market was uncertain. Stability was the brand, and so the company chose to wait. What it didn't realize was that waiting was no longer neutral. In a market that had begun moving again, stillness was becoming visible, and visibility was becoming vulnerability. The shift became impossible to ignore when customers stopped defending the company. In conversations that once included advocacy and reassurance, there was now neutrality. The product wasn't criticized. It simply wasn't mentioned with pride. Loyalty, once emotional, had become transactional. Sales teams felt it first. Renewal still closed, but enthusiasm was gone. Expansion conversations stalled. Customers hesitated to commit long-term, preferring shorter agreements just in case. When asked why, they offered vague answers. Market uncertainty, internal priorities, nothing that sounded alarming on its own. Inside product reviews, the consequences of stability sharpened. Features built years earlier still worked, but they anchored everything around them. Changing direction required undoing decisions made to preserve sameness. Every attempt at innovation felt heavier than it should have been. The company wasn't just stable, it was rigid. Meanwhile, competitors accelerated, not recklessly, but deliberately. They framed change as resilience. They positioned adaptability as the new form of safety. Their messaging didn't attack stability. It questioned permanence. Customers listened because the message aligned with what they were already experiencing. The conflict peaked when a longtime customer announced a phased transition, not a replacement, not a rupture, a gradual shift toward alternatives that felt more future-ready. Leadership was stunned. This was a loyal account, a reference customer, someone who had praised stability for years. When asked what changed, the answer was simple. You stayed the same. We didn't. That moment reframed everything. The strategist's warnings resurfaced. The language shifts. The experiments at the edges. The gradual loss of emotional attachment. Stability hadn't protected the company. It had delayed its awareness. Leadership faced an uncomfortable truth. By optimizing for certainty, they had trained the organization to avoid learning, to minimize variance, to treat change as threat rather than signal. And in a market that had resumed moving, that posture was no longer defensive. It was exposed. The company stood at a crossroads it hadn't planned for. Change now felt urgent, not optional. But urgency after delay is expensive. It compresses timelines. It magnifies risk. It forces decisions under pressure rather than curiosity. The final realization settled in quietly but decisively. Stability hadn't failed because it was wrong. It failed because it was held too long. And the cost of that delay was about to be felt all at once. The reckoning came without drama. No sudden collapse. No headline moment. Just a series of choices made under pressure, each one carrying the weight of time the company no longer had. The safety of stability had evaporated, replaced by the urgency of relevance. The climax arrived when leadership finally committed to change, not from curiosity, but from necessity. Initiatives launched simultaneously. Roadmaps were overhauled. Teams were asked to move faster than they had in years. But acceleration without preparation carries its own risks. The organization struggled to adapt, constrained by structures built to resist change. Some progress followed. Customers noticed effort. Innovation returned, but the advantage had shifted. Competitors weren't just moving faster. They were moving with confidence earned through years of adaptation. The company, by contrast, was relearning habits it had set aside long ago. The resolution wasn't a comeback story. It was a recalibration. The company found a new position, not as a safe default, but as a participant in a more dynamic market. Stability remained part of its identity, but no longer its shield. Adaptability had to be earned again, step by step. Looking back, the lesson crystallized with painful clarity. Stability is not a destination. It is a phase, and like all phases, it expires when conditions change. The companies that endure are not the ones that cling to safety the longest. They're the ones that recognize when safety has become inertia and choose to move before stillness becomes visible. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future.